Mayor Goff, your call.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I just want to pick up on Councillor Clowe's comments about undergrounding. Look, your first job, of course, is to provide a reliable, resilient supply of power to the city, and nobody's going to question that as your first priority. But isn't it fair to say that some of our communities in Auckland disproportionately carry the burden of the unsightliness of overhead lines? And I'm thinking of Onehunga Bay, where we've got 3 sets of lines going across there. They're all pretty old. They will need replacement. It is expensive, but all your new lines are underground. Why wouldn't you start a progressive program of undergrounding, particularly in environmentally sensitive places, so that over a longish period of time we could at least see some improvement in the aesthetics of transmission lines?
We will be looking at that for sure as part of the study we're doing, the future of Auckland. But managing expectations, the reality is this is cheap to re-put up in the air, and you can keep that asset going forever. It's very expensive to replace that for no actual improvement in quality or supply with that kind of undergrounding solution. But absolutely, there may be opportunities for us to rationalise some of those assets. There may be opportunities for us to take certain sections. If we look at what the future could be, we'll then have a better chance of the options, and we'll be able to come back and say, you can have this for this, you can have that for that. Yes, we'll be looking at that.
So is that an expectation that we might have, that there would be, over time, some progressive undergrounding?
No, you'll have an expectation we will give you options for what the cost of that will be.
Okay. I'm not sure how much that's promising us.
It's being realistic.
Sorry, at the risk of abusing my position, Mr Chairman, if it's good enough for a new division to put it underground, why isn't it good sorry, let me finish, please.
Yep.
Why isn't it good enough to say those communities which have had to put up with these lines for 40 years, and there's no fun living under a transmission line, that we would progressively, I understand the economic constraints, but I'd like to hear some commitment that we would begin a progressive undergrounding of those lines.
As I say, we can do anything provided we're funded for it. Our regulatory model does not allow for that. We need to have the dialogue to say for New Zealand, is that what you want to spend that money to do? The reason why we have to put a cable under new line, we couldn't afford to buy all the property rights to put a new line across Auckland.
Sure.
But yes, those are options.
And I think, the work that we're doing, we were being really bold and throwing that ball out really far, will provide us with those conversations with communities around, what that future might look like, and then we can work back from there on how we get to that ideal, and that would be part of conversations with many parties, funding being one of those, but there might be other things, other commercial arrangements that could happen on how we get to that future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Casey.
Oh no, I was just going to ask another question about the ugly pylons, but they've been asked and answered. Thanks.
I mean, let's be real. Everybody would love us to provide ultra-reliable, free power with no visual impact. And I have to say, I've got some incredibly smart people in my company, but we just can't do that, I'm sorry.
Well, that's a bit over the top, quite frankly.
Let's just be fair here, and we'll...
Yeah, well, I mean, fair is fair.
Sorry, we can't just debate this in this manner.
No, we can't. But then you should temper that sort of comment as well.
Okay, I take that on board. And if you want to pose a question, members, you please do it through me, and we'll proceed.
I apologise if that was inappropriate.
Shouldn't have to apologise. You're fine.
Deputy Chair Denise Lee.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and one wonders whether we should have found that workshop time rather than public input here today. I'd like to confirm, if I may, something that you said earlier, one of you said earlier, and confirm your words, we are moving 7 towers at $40 million to NZTA's cost for the east-west connections. That would be news to us. We, as you know, in our council position in the Board of Inquiry is that we would like those 110 kV pylons undergrounded, but our response from NZTA has been that that is out of scope for them, and that would be something that you would have to undertake separately. Can you confirm that that is your words that you've just said prior?
Yeah, so if we're talking about the east-west link, then you're absolutely right in that NZTA, because of what Alison said before about the cost of cabling, then they're obviously undergrounding that section or a large portion of sections of a number of lines there that the east-west connections impacts is too expensive for them because they are the ones who are paying for it. And we're only having to move certain towers, along that entire route.
So can I just confirm then that you have signed an agreement with NZTA?
No, Denise, we should be clear on that. We are part of the Board of Inquiry support with being there with NZTA, who is seeking consents. At the moment, the plan they've put forward is for us to move those towers, so that's what we're working towards. But you're right, it's not final yet.
Absolutely.
So your response is working towards, and that is, can you clarify the difference between moving and undergrounding?
Yeah, what NZTA has, and I can't speak for them, but putting forward their consent, they need to make sure they accommodate the transmission system as not being compromised. And the least cost route we have worked through with them to accommodate their roading extension is to move the towers. They have not asked us, as part of their funding, to underground at this stage.
Okay, and that's subject to the Board of Inquiry, which is underway right now. I think we'll leave that one there. Thank you.